Okay, so I'm going ahead and jump right into this. This is L to the B. We just had, I think I just had a video discussing non-duality, and I guess it's not being perceived or received too well, but it's not my problem. It's not why I made the video was to please people. It's my personal perception on things and perspective, and at some point it should alleviate somebody's concerns, but I don't really want to talk about that today. The main thing I want to talk about in this video is dealing with cycling, okay? So just cycles in general. If you can wake up today, you woke up to whatever the weather was like wherever you're at. And depending on what part or what time of the year, you're going through a season. This is just the philosophy and fundamentals of life. It's that things are built around in cycles. Now, people vary from one person to the next, of course. So everybody's got their preferences in life. So some people prefer being in a nice, wonderful, mostly nicely wonderful energy weather states. So you pick something like California or something like that, in opposed to like where, you could be in North Carolina, you could be in all these different places where the seasons are always fluctuating or they're not. But I talk with a lot of people from different places, different states, and a lot of people choose states that have like what they call the four seasons. And it's because they always have diversity, or the weather gives them diversity. It's not always the same all the time. So, I mean, where I'm going with this discussion in cycling is that I think that's what happens to a lot of people in life. They get into their rudimentary patterns or steps or whatever the heck that they're doing every day to day in their habitual lives. Some are running just on autopilot, some are making decisions out of autopilot. I mean, you got anything and everything in between. And I think what happens, and this is just something I can only comment on in my experience, my world, my life, is there's this sense of habituation. And I mean, psychology covers this very well, is that whatever you're exposed to for longer periods of time, you tend to get sick of it. It's just normal function. That at least is what it seems like from the studies and what the statistics are saying, is that habituation has a fall off period at some point where you're just not interested in whatever it is. I mean, everybody can liken this to hearing a song played 50 times on the radio to where they don't even care about the song. It makes them want to throw up. But yeah, for those that get really, really bored, I think cycling is could be a cool feature to drop in. So in the cycling philosophy, at least what I have it as, you take whatever it is that you're experiencing in life and cycle through it. So maybe you're having states of, like me, I like to get stoned every now and then. It's fine. These little stupid gummies that are illegal here, they're insanely, they basically take you out. There's no question. It can incapacitate you, right? But I like to go through periods of where maybe I'm enjoying life. I'm kind of living on a little bit on what I call my wild side of things, and I just try not to overseason whatever it is that I'm doing. I try not to do it too much, and I'll do that for a period of time, and then I'll stop, and then I'll go into a straight pattern where everything is more productive, structured out. I'm very, very rigid in that scale of things. I can get very serious minded on a lot of topics and subjects, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to have a defensive position, but I will definitely examine it more thoroughly, and I won't just take like the calmness and the flow of life or just happy-go-lucky in me. I won't embrace that. So, but what I'm trying to say in all this is when you cycle the two, you get a chance to have a break. It's like with foods, people part of the big problem I think with obesity in the country is because people don't cycle off. If they would just have these periods of cycling with food all along, maybe as bad as some of these unhealthy foods are, I know there's a lot of people that talk massive junk about it. I mean, like the diet world is crazy, and there's like a lot of cool fitness guys out there. I mean, they have like the body that everybody's after, right? And they're commenting on like, hey, I'm freaking every now and then I do Cheetos or I do ice cream and I just maybe they have cheat days, and they're incorporating something that what we deem unhealthy in America, right? It's funny how all the knowledge, all the videos, all the documentaries, and all the food companies and everything that's out there um, about our health and about our diets, and yet it isn't changing anything. I mean, people, there's no like marketed change really between, obesity. Obesity is still happening. If anything, it makes people feel like they're powerless. And so when people get in positions of powerlessness, where where they don't feel anything, like they can do anything, they're less apt to making a change, or they're just like, well, it is what it is. I'm just gonna stick with it. But if people can get in a state of embracing a cycle where they're like, okay, I'm kind of tired of what I'm doing right now, and now I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to choose this other path. It maybe even seem directly opposite to the other. Well, there's a lot of cool stuff that can happen out of that, a lot of new experiences. It seems uncomfortable at the beginning because, again, the unknown, or the indifference, I should say, is when the difference happens, then that's a contrast to what somebody's currently experiencing. So, like, normally, I mean, I haven't got stoned today, but geez, like, this is me on such a dulled down version making these videos that even in this state, this is still dull for me. But I'm not gonna criticize it too much, because I want to make the videos and I want to make it in the states of mind of whatever I'm in when I'm currently making them. So I can't hate on the experience. But if you can shift gears and you can kind of navigate into other different things and let time work itself in those areas, and just breathe that experience. This is the best way I can say it, is breathe that breath over here. I mean, just as much as you can change your breath to do different things, that's one aspect of life, is cycling. So I say cycle, maybe something that you're heavily against. You don't have to do everything drastically. I'm a drastic person. I can shift gears in all kinds of directions and just be fine. I've found my level of comfort in that. But some people may just want to shift gears or shift directions minimally. You just go minimally in one direction. And then when that's fun, maybe take a time and take a break, and then you go back into this other way. And you don't have to change with so much. Let me see if I can give you an example. Um, it can be small. It could be just as simple as you get up every single day and you make your bed. It could be that you don't make your bed. Whatever that is, flip-flop it. With hygiene type things, I'm not going to advocate going against that. So if it's hygiene related and you're just trying to stay in optimal health there, I'm not going to talk against that. But, entertain it. Entertain your alternatives. And you'll find that the alternatives, when you go into those spaces, it's best to come from a concept or from a standpoint that there's no good or bad. It's different. And if you can just get that philosophy, it's just different. It's not good or bad. Matter of fact, I like to see, let me examine what possibly is the good or bad out of this different experience that I'm doing. Self-examine, get conscious about the whole experience. And then maybe something that comes out of that. And then that's the whole premise of what I'm making on this video, is cycling life, making things more fresh, or spicing it up. What they say, diversity is the spice of life. Well, I don't know if that's a quote or not. I think it is. So, embrace that kind of experience in life, to where you're just not pigeonholing and doing the same thing over and over, and you find what most people don't know they're having is life boredom. You've gotten bored in life. Well, we're more instantly gratified than ever now. But that in itself could be something that you challenge against. Finding that whatever you're instantly gratified with, halting it. Just taking one piece of that and just sitting with it, and not just saying more, 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 more. Say, if for instance, not more, 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 now you just go, thank you. Now, just this. What's this? If it feels like you're wasting time, let the time be wasted. So, I don't. This goes back to the first video. It's non-duality. It's an illusion. So, the time gives anxiety. people always trying to get something accomplished, something done before they kick the bucket, because this clock is running. And really, in truthfulness, is that you don't have to do anything. But if you want to do something to make your experience more enjoyable, and whatever this whole thing is, then that could be something that you choose to do, is just cycle it out. I think there's a whole lot of things that can be said about cycling. If you have a system that's running, let's say, I heard this on like a different video somewhere else. I haven't really watched a lot of content lately. I just figured I'd make a video, but somebody was saying, like, you can't run at high capacity all the time. Like, you look at a computer and you see, like, sometimes things start slowing down. You have hiccups here or there. I got a good computer, so I really don't go through that. But you can have these problems on different things. You can have it on your phone. You can have it on whatever. And usually people just hit the restart button, or they power it off for a little bit and they power it back on, and all of a sudden your device works a lot faster. And it's because it got a chance to clear the cobwebs. And that's kind of how life goes, man. You just you can't be all the way one side, it seems. When people are trying to find their spot, there is none. Because when you get there, you're looking for the spot where you came from. You're trying to bring it along with you. You're trying to put it on top and like make it all work. And that's the riddle of life. But there's religions that kind of speak on some of this, what I'm saying. So I'm not completely pulling this out of my ass. If you look at chematology, they really speak about the cycles of life or existence or experience. And they'll talk about how, of course, you got your summer, winter, fall and all that, spring and stuff like that, and the seasons. But they also speak about the cycles in general, like in time, or like in the time of the day. So you always go through a period where it's dark, and then it's getting lighter, and then lighter, it's getting darker, and then the next day it does the exact same thing, and there's this cycle continuing all the time. In general, the 4 seasons, or whatever, the 2 or 3, whatever you have, they should be operating kind of similarly wherever you're at, to where experiences happen one way at certain points, and then weather shifts, and climate shifts, and then you have this other kind of experience for a period of time. Cycles and just humanity. They say that the beginning, well, it wasn't even really the beginning, because it's always been a cycle in their view. So again, this kind of connects with the non-duality kind of perspective, is that it's always been, everything is what it's been, yada yada. Something similar in the Bible. All that's been has been something, blah blah blah. I really don't know. I got a lot of info up here, and I'm not trying to be some kind of guy that's a guru. I'm not trying to be one of these people out here that's going to tell you the answers to life. I'm just trying to tell you Joe Schmo's version of what he sees and what he experiences. But getting back to chematology, they talk about the cycles, and I think it's fascinating. So you can have where they said there was a period of time where females were the ruling energy. This is all coming from their passed down oral communication from one person to the next. Like they transfer their stories orally, where we try to write ours down and hold accountable the written text and interpret and all that bullshit. And people can come in and edit that, and everything's subject to to being fallible. I mean, everything can be changed and moved into some other category of whatever. Every time I heard like somebody say, well, this is what the Bible said, and then somebody else would say, well, what version is that? Or they say the King James version, or what version of translation is that? Or how many denominations does the religion have? It just gets to be ridiculous. I mean, just my interpretation of just how things are going. But I'm digressing again. It is what it is. But to say, at one point in time, females ruled everything, okay? And at some point, the patriarchal society took over, and that's where kind of where we're at right now. But it's also trans. Um, yeah, we're also trans in general. So everybody's turning into, transgender, transfer, trans. Everybody's they're transferring. They're changing. It's in a point of progression. Maybe I don't really call it progression. I just consider it change, and it's probably just a seasonal situation. So I think we're all moving towards that female energy again. And a lot of things in culture are saying that. Politics sometimes echoes it. But whether we need to embrace or not embrace it, I say go with the flow. Somebody's not going to like that. Well, if your flow is to kind of hold strong your position of being male and masculine, I say go for that. Nothing wrong with it. But you're going to find it being a lot more difficult if you're not in a good flow pattern. A lot of conversations on flow now. So that energy is all and is in a kind of an expression type flow. I mean, like whatever you're feeling, whatever you're intuitively drawn to, whatever your energy, your soul, your spirit is speaking to you, what's gravitating you, what's pulling you, what's vibing with you. Those are the things that are becoming more considered, more important, more valued. If somebody's after something, than opposed to being dichotomized, or I'm making up words if you hear this shit, but more like a dichotomy where things are split down the middle and there's a left and there's a right. And I mean, that is beginning to get really shaken up and rattled. And really, if you look at it, that's a masculine type energy. Now, I talk about this with different people, like psychologists, long-standing relationships with them, 30 plus years, that in the field, where I was in, you don't really know my background, but that's kind of where I'm in. So dealing with clinical psychologists, it's been 30 plus years in it. Other people that have been engineers, and some of them are historical teachers. And I get into these discussions with them sometimes about the energies of what things look like in the past and what they look now, and none of them would disagree. Nobody. And it's not to say that I'm looking to be right in this, but I am looking for um, to see, is it like the same thing, like everybody else feels the same way, or what's your opinion on it? But it's that if you look back in time, everything does look very masculine oriented. I mean, things are war, everything has to be organized, everything has to be labeled, and we have to investigate. And science, really, science is another big, huge male um, structure or system, or even a religion for a lot of people, where it's so ambiguous but nobody wants to argue. No one's trying to argue that point. They're always just accepting it at face value. Well, it's science, so it must be true. It's like it's the internet. It must be true. And what people are forgetting is that it has nothing to do with it. It's just a philosophy. It's an approach. And so science is kind of like, now, like you can use basic tenets of like the scientific method. I mean, hell, I came from that. I mean, I love that energy. I love the science expression and like investigating something, peeling back and being a skeptic about things. But it's also riddled and filled with theories, and theories which hold up to a certain point but cannot be 100% proven are still a theory. I mean, to somebody says it's a fact has to come with a really strong weight, because I mean, at certain levels, everything can be considered a fact if everyone just ultimately agrees that the theory seems mostly supported. You can't say a theory mostly supported is now a fact. That's the worst gray area in science that I've seen. Until it's like, and I mean, even then it can be kind of, I guess, a little bit questionable, because things are so reality is so manipulable that with our senses, that we really don't get the full picture. But we're looking for something massively concrete. I'll just say that, massively concrete. I know there's an experience with me breathing in, breathing out. I have breath. I can sense things, and it makes it self-evident to me. If it's pretty strong like that, yeah, you can hang a hat on. But otherwise, the rest of the stuff just kind of gets labeled out as fact, and people just take it at face value and they're running with it. And in that whole system of things where we got masculine, and that's the history, war and raping. And if you notice, like things started to change, things started to shift. Where if you look at today and you look at back in the day, like we're a lot more softer as a culture, at least ways I can speak for American culture. When I came along, there was people that were carrying switchblades to school. There was people like you always kind of had to worry about like if I get in a fight, how am I going to handle somebody with a knife, or how am I going to handle somebody with a gun, or do I need to be in these situations where even something like that would pop up? And it, I mean, and people are really pretty freaking evil too. Like it was nothing for people to be breaking into abandoned houses or anything like this has happened like frequently when I was coming up, where they break into houses and they'd hold these, ceremonies or cut chicken heads off and, complete Satanism, I mean, it's just where this is what existed. And all that kind of shifted and started shifting out and all this mainstream culture came in and influencing the minds. And now the difference that I can see between the two is that people are so afraid for the kids to do anything for the risk of something happening that's they're not even exposed to anymore, or not even hardly even exposed to. I'll give you an example. Like most parents are terrified of their kids being on a bicycle, riding from one house to another that may be down the road or street over or two or that's not a good enough. Let's say neighborhoods. Like maybe it takes them a couple miles. Maybe it's 2-3 miles a distance that they got to ride their bicycle. Parents will freak out. They're like, "No, you can't go out there. You might get kidnapped, or something can happen. The sky could fall on you." Like there's so much panic. And what that is, it seems like it's more that overarching motherly spirit, caretaking, taking care of people, but at the same time, we're getting so much more abundance. Abundance is a female energy. And if we track history, we can see how all this stuff is just like steadily becoming more and more abundant, more and more less manageable, which is, of course, this is some of the stuff that the Greeks talked about when they were talking about democracy. It's like at certain points you can't control it. They knew something more about democracy than the rest of the other people did. And this is something I learned very early on in college. And it was like it's certain numbers or certain amounts you can't manage it. Even in a representative democracy. I mean, you have to have a certain number, let's say constituent, that represents a certain amount of people. Well, we've far outreached that capacity to where it doesn't, they're not really truly representatives whatsoever. But the story goes on, and everyone thinks there's this illusion of control, and there was a real illusion of control that's been taking place, but that's pretty much gone. And I say all this to say that we go through these cycles, and I'm pretty sure that we're headed towards more of a female type energy. I mean, whatever the powers may be, whatever they feel like maybe they're governing some control or whatever's happening. As far as a reality is concerned, no one can deny that most of, at least ways, all of the countries that were pulled into this whole thing, when COVID-19 came about, this was not an isolated type experience. It's an energy shift that affects and still affects countries, and that really did a shift, a big shift. Like if everything was kind of moving along at a slow pace, this was like, the energetic shift to like even push it even more forward and really yank out a big root. And then like everybody's been in this kind of limbo state, things that they used to be able to consider they could rely on or being questioned now. And I mean that in all ways. And this gets back to that whole point of cycling. And now you got another cycle of life that you're getting exposed to and experiencing. And you've got to navigate through that. I mean, one thing they say that is constant is change, right? That stays the same is change. And I believe that. And so cycling helps people, I think, get on better with something like that in a changing type reality, when you're able to just be able to kind of flow with whatever's coming at that moment. And I'm not saying just be willy-nilly. If you want to have your own foundations to life, that's up to you. It's whatever you want to do. But I find it pretty cool when you can start to bend some of the self-imposed rules or habits or guidelines you may have, as long as it meets your comfort level of discomfort, right? Because at certain points, you don't want to like really, you got to evaluate. I think as a person, like for me, I evaluate how it's going to affect my life, my family, or whatever. But people need to do that to the degree of comfort that's for them. And that's all I want to make today for the video because I'm getting ready to go out and just have some fun, enjoy nature. Did it yesterday. I don't know. Wish everybody a wonderful day. Again, if you don't mind, please like, subscribe, share if you want to discuss. I had somebody give me a comment. I appreciate the comment. It's 100% right. I think that person was spot on. So yeah, just do that. And if you got any like topics or something like that you want me to discuss, let me know. I enjoy different things. And if you give me the topic, I'll probably go and look up some content on it. I probably might already have an idea or some knowledge about it already. But you give me a topic, I'll dab into it a little bit more so I can be a little bit more refreshed, semantically, and then I'll make a video on it. Give a couple of perspectives and just the average Joe response to what I see and what I view. But anyways, have a great day, whatever that day is. I think today's Thursday for me, so I'll see you on the next video. Take care.